So basically, transplant rejection, organ transplants, is kind of a huge issue because we really don't have a way of repairing organs when they start to fail. And really the only way around that is to replace the organ entirely. So being able to grow new organs from someone's own DNA, their own cells, would be kind of a huge step. So the use of embryonic stem cells raises the ethical issues that I was talking about in the last video, mainly because you do have to have a fertilized egg and then start to grow that fertilized egg until it reaches a large enough size that it has a significant number of stem cells on the inside of the zygote, the forming fetus, zygote, different terms for it. So embryonic stem cells are pluripotent, which means that they can actually divide into other stem cells. So you can, once you get them, grow them indefinitely in culture, as long as you're actually careful with them and don't screw it up. Because once the pluripotent stem cells start to differentiate or even transfer into multipotent stem cells, then you've lost that pluripotent ability. They can't divide into other stem cells, and they don't have that potential to be any other type of cell except the totipotent. Okay, so this is looking at kind of how the stem cells work and how they get to differentiation. So the first step, this is how they harvest embryonic stem cells, actually. But the first step is you have an egg fertilized by a sperm cell in a petri dish. Now, a lot of this research was kind of born from, what are they called? Fertilization facilities, where people go to help figure out why they can't have kids. So oftentimes, men will basically have their egg or sperm cells extracted and then frozen. And they have kind of a expiration date on them. And so at some point when a lot of these egg and sperm cells were reaching that expiration date, some researchers found out, who donated them and basically got permission to use them for science. And then just started fertilizing eggs and found out that they could actually harvest stem cells from the eggs after, or the fertilized eggs after a certain amount of time when they were able to grow up to a certain point. So the egg divides, forming an inner cell mass, which is this mass of stem cells that you can see here inside the ring of other cells. Okay. Now, once it gets to that point, that inner cell mass is removed. So they can actually stick a needle into this sphere of cells and then extract the inner cell mass, which is all stem cells. Okay? Then they can use different nutrients to grow those stem cells. Okay? So those different growth conditions actually control how the cells specialize or differentiate. Okay, so there was a lot of research done on what kind of conditions are necessary to create muscle cells or neurons or red blood cells from these stem cells. Okay, now might not seem all that useful to know what growing conditions produce these different cells as the embryo is developing. But if you think about it, if you have an adult stem cell and you submit it to the growing conditions that would produce neurons, okay, then all of a sudden you have a mass of neurons that you've grown, and you can actually implant those into a human. Okay, so if you had a traumatic neck injury that severed the spinal cord, you can actually, theoretically at least, repair it. Now, we haven't really gotten to that point yet, but it is at least theoretical that that could happen. Okay, and then, just different things like that. Basically, you can produce specific types of cells based on how you grow these stem cells. And, it has quite a wide range of possibilities there. So, the use of stem cells offers many currently realized and potential benefits. We've talked about a couple of them. A lot of it has to deal with repairing the body from various illnesses, various injuries, things like that. So, replacing neurons to get back the signals from the brain all throughout the body to fix the spinal cord, or, growing new organs, different things like that. Stem cells can also be used to treat different types of cancer, like leukemia and lymphoma. Okay, I believe both of those are cancers of the white blood cells, if I remember correctly. So, you could basically replace the white blood cells in a human body. Okay, and you can basically wipe out the diseased ones and then replace them with healthy ones. Okay, so that would be a way to treat certain cancers. You can use them to cure disease or replace damaged organs. I've actually got a couple videos about some of the research and work they've been doing on replacing those damaged organs and growing organ transplants. Stem cells may cure disease. Okay, if you think about basically all of the damaged cells get wiped out, well, you probably need those cells, so stem cells could be used to replace them. And then you can also think about revolutionizing the drug development process. Okay, and this really just kind of goes into being able to test drugs on not only different cell types, any cell type you need without having to harvest those cells from a human being, but also think about we can't really study the effects of drugs on a developing child, okay, an embryo. Okay, that is viewed as highly unethical. That's why oftentimes when you hear like medical ads where they're advertising a specific drug, generally they will say do not take if you're pregnant or may be pregnant or trying to get pregnant. It's because we don't know what all of these drugs will do to a developing embryo, a fetus. Okay, especially because at that stage the child is at the most vulnerable developmental stage. So we've seen this a lot with people who use different addictive drugs. Okay, we've had babies being born who are addicted to like heroin or different things like that because their mother was using while they were pregnant. We've also seen this with alcohol, which is one of those major reasons why people always push don't drink alcohol when you're pregnant, because we know for a fact that that is harmful to a developing baby. So it's really because there are so many things that have to line up during that stage of development before birth that you tweak one thing and all of these other things start to cascade and you get all kinds of developmental issues in the fetus and just, yeah, and it's really, there are just so many things that have to line up correctly in a human child as they are developing that you screw one up and it just exponentially grows from there. But anyway, so stem cells, there are some really cool things that we are trying to work with on them. One of the major pushes right now, again, is to be able to take adult stem cells and then basically convert them into pluripotent stem cells, or even to take adult differentiated cells and then convert them back into stem cells. And there is quite a bit of research into that. And basically the idea would be to activate all of the DNA. So basically take those areas, those regions of the DNA that have been inactivated during the differentiation process and then reactivate them and see if that forces the cells back into stem cell form. Because then we would be able to basically produce stem cells at will. And so all of this research, we could kind of just avoid all of the ethical concerns and still do the research. But anyway, stem cells are really cool. There's a lot more out there. If you are interested in looking into it, just let me know. So that is the end of this chapter.